44 points is great. Most they've scored in 2 years. But what does it actually tell you about this Seahawks team?
I personally can take a lot out of that because the games over here kick off at about 9 p.m. And the last thing you want is any kind of stress on a Sunday at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. So over the years, the Seahawks have been very good at making these games closer than they need to be. So to sort of sit back and enjoy and bask in a comfortable win that was over by the end of the first quarter was great for us. How much can they take away from it? I think actually probably more than people think, because the Seahawks outcoached the New Orleans Saints. They have shown that they can win games in a variety of different ways, and this time it was more on the special teams. They're going to need that a little bit down the road to know that they're capable of doing that. The defense continues to play very well, and to see those defensive backs step up to the plate when you haven't got Devin Witherspoon, when you haven't got Julian Love, I think that is a real positive there. And then when you look at the offense, it was not a game where you needed to lean on the offense at all. But for Sam Darnold to play as well as he did, for the pass protection to be good, for your receivers to play well again, I think there's probably quite a lot of positive to take from that.
Hey, tell me overall what you've seen from Sam Darnold through three weeks, because he was obviously one of the most massive stories for this team heading into the season. And yet each week it's felt like we're talking about a different non-Sam Darnold topic. So what have you seen overall from him this year?
I think he's been really good. There is very little emotion coming from him, whether something goes wrong, like a couple of interceptions in Pittsburgh, or whether something goes right. He just seems so level-headed. He is attacking the middle of the field in these last 2 weeks. You can see that he's got that physical quality that made him the third overall pick back in the day, when he's running one way and can throw across his body and do it with accuracy. He can test opponents downfield. There's an awful lot to like about him, and I'm just really encouraged. There's a reason why he is currently PFF's top graded quarterback after 3 weeks. So I think this is a really good start. And in fairness to him, people were always going to go, did the Seahawks make the right decision going to Sam Darnold? Should they have kept Geno Smith? And I think through 3 weeks, the fact that we are not really talking about that much at all is a credit to him. It's a credit to Clint Kubiak, and it's a credit to the way the Seahawks have handled this situation. So let's hope that he can continue to play at this level, because this is a very encouraging start.
Credit Mike McDonald as well. His defense, I don't want to say his defense, obviously the head coach, but his defense has held opponents to 17 points or fewer now in 3 consecutive starts. I feel like I'm so blown away by the defensive line. You mentioned them playing so well without Witherspoon this past week, without Love, certainly without Eamon Worry, though we don't know what kind of impact he's going to have on this defense quite yet. But tell me what you've seen, maybe especially from that front seven, but from the defense as a whole.
It's the defensive tackles. You know, they're a three-headed monster, which is really fun to watch. Jarran Reed, for me, is one of the more underrated players in the league, just because of the attitude that he brings, and that's the way that he solidifies the interior. He does have a bit more pass rush than I think perhaps people outside of Seattle realize. You've seen Byron Murphy take a huge step forward. And Leonard Williams is just, I don't think there's a better defensive tackle in terms of performance in the NFL from, I don't know, week 10 last season onwards and into this season. He's just consistently disruptive. He should have had another sack at the weekend, but it was taken away for a ridiculous penalty. It's a privilege to watch Leonard Williams playing for the Seahawks. And then when you pair him alongside Jarran Reed and Byron Murphy, there's not another team in the league that can field 3 players of that quality on the interior. And then, look, the pass rushers, they're not getting those easy sacks. You're not sort of seeing a Maffei or a Hall or Lawrence or Nwosu so far screaming off the edge, leveling a quarterback. They're not racking up the stats in terms of sacks, but they are pushing tackles back into the quarterback. They are creating pressures. I think that's the next step now. It's for them to get a few more of those easy wins, to get a few more of those sacks. If they can do that, this promises to be a really good defense. And the work that they've done on the secondary with the depth they've got there, because the cornerback position in particular looked light going into the season, and now it looks loaded. So I think you've got to give Cole Scott a lot of credit, Mike McDonald, Adam Durdy. Got to give a shout out to the British guy that's on the staff. You know, they've done a really good job with this unit, and you imagine that if everybody stays healthy, it can be one of the best units in the league this year.
I absolutely agree with that when it comes to the defense. Heading back to the offense here, and I want to kind of not compare and contrast to the Rams so much as just talk about how good the Rams have looked so far and whether or not the Seahawks as a complete team are giving you that same confidence. I mean, the Rams looked very much like they were going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles just somehow still an unstoppable team. No surprise they're still a favorite for the Super Bowl. But given just how good Stafford has looked with Puka, Nakua, with Adams, I'm wondering, like, can the Seahawks offense keep pace? I have very few critiques coming from a game in which they dropped 44, but if I had one, it's not like the offense was absolutely phenomenal dropping 44. You had a lot on special teams. They still struggled to convert some third downs. So is there something you're still waiting to see from the offense? Or conversely, Rob, maybe you feel way more optimistic than I do, and there's a lot you've seen that you love.
I think it's the run blocking. They've got to be better in the run blocking. They're not creating easy yardage in the running game. It does seem to be a lot of, tackle for a loss, get stalled at the line. Oh, look, and then, they get a 7 or 8 yarder and they're able to sort of progress that way. It needs to be more consistent with the run blocking. You mentioned the Rams. They look absolutely terrifying for about 3/4 of that game against the Eagles. They look like the best team in the NFC. And you're looking at that and thinking, my word, I have totally underestimated how good this Rams team is. I've got that completely wrong. They are legit. They might be the best team in the conference. And then they just threw it away. Like, I was watching it on Red Zone, and as the game was going on, I kept looking up, and it's like, oh, the Eagles have scored again, and the Eagles have scored again, and now Jordan Davis is having the game of his life. Now he's sprinting 19 miles an hour, 70 yards for a block kick return touchdown.
Horrible news. I was playing Jalen Hurts. It was awful in fantasy.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to make of the Rams, because on the one hand, it's okay looking really good for 3/4 of a game, but if they then throw it away at the end, I don't know whether to think that they're legit or whether they're actually susceptible, that if you just get out of your own way, like the Eagles didn't do for 3/4 of that game, then you might be able to handle them. So it's a shame we have to wait till November to watch the Seahawks play the Rams, because that would be a fascinating game. But I think the Seahawks are building slowly. It's very frustrating that they lost the game that I travelled to Seattle to see, and then they've won the next 2. But I think that they are building gradually. This is a fascinating game against the Cardinals. If they can win that one, get a win in the NFC West, go to 3-1, then I think we're going to be spending that little mini bye before the Buccaneers game, thinking the Seahawks are on the right track here.
Rob, let's continue to peek around the NFC West, because there was some massive injury news, as you know, with Nick Bosa done for the season with a torn ACL. I should also mention James Conner, needing surgery for an ankle injury as well, suffered in the Cardinals game against the 49ers. Each team loses a pretty major player there. How does that impact the West, especially considering still 2 to play against Arizona, 1 against San Francisco?
Not for me to want to give any credit to the San Francisco 49ers, but given all of the injuries that they've had, to be 3-0, you're going to have to take your hat off to them and say well done to them. But this might be the the straw that breaks the camel's back. Losing your best player, Nick Bosa. I don't know how they're going to survive this latest setback and continue to keep winning these tight games. They beat the Cardinals by a point. They were a little bit fortunate at the end to beat the Seahawks. They didn't play amazingly well against the Saints. You've got to feel that this catches up with them a little bit. Maybe the Jaguars will beat them this weekend. I have to say, don't want to rule out Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a good coach. They have Fred Warner is unbelievable. He's a predator. He's just unbelievable to watch. I wish he didn't play for the Niners. I wish he played for someone else so I could enjoy him even more. When you've got quality players like that, they're always going to be a threat. But I just think that this might be an injury too far for them. And then for the Cardinals, I don't know what everybody else thought. I watched that Cardinals-Niners game with half an eye on it on Red Zone. I just feel like the Cardinals are who they've been for the last 2 years. They can give anybody a game, but they don't quite have enough difference makers to sort of really worry about them. Hope that's not going to be famous last words ahead of this Thursday, but the Seahawks handled the Cardinals last season twice. I'm hoping they're going to do it again on Thursday. I think that Kyler Murray versus Mike McDonald defense is a bad matchup for the Cardinals, so I'm optimistic that they're going to win that game.
No, I'm with you. It's. I think every year the Cardinals are this sexy pick because they seemingly on paper have enough talent where you go, well, God, Kyler Murray, he's got that, maybe that kind of like potential to finally take off, but he's never consistently getting there. And then you think, oh God, Marvin Harrison Jr., how could I overlook him? They added Sweat, tried to re-up the defense and really improve that, and it looks kind of like how you thought, where they're still going to hurt themselves sometimes. Trey McBride is still their leading receiver. Like, it's everything is kind of what you expected. I actually want to get back to the Seahawks offense a little bit. You and I both shared a concern after week one, and it was, oh God, we were both more optimistic than national critics when it came to this wide receiver room. You know where I'm going to go with this one. And then we left week one and we went, what if they were right? Like, what if they might have to make a midseason trade? What if there's still a lot of waiting that we're going to have to do to find an answer here? And that was with knowing that JSN looked exceptional and has continued to look really solid. And then came Tory Horton with just an explosive play on special teams, 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks. Do you think the Seahawks have found their answer to where that explosiveness can come from?
I hope so. Now, Tory Horton is playing ever so well, and he, to me, going into sort of the draft process, everybody wants to, who's the next Puka Nacua? Who's the next receiver who's going to go in the 5th round? And there are always, it seems, receivers in that range that can come in and have an impact. And he stood out as somebody that, look, when he was still there on day 3, this is a value pick. And people like Nick Emenwari were saying he's going to be the steal of the draft. And we're hearing what a great training camp he's having. And then when the season starts and he is scoring touchdowns, not just obviously as a receiver, but also as a punt returner, it's very exciting. I don't want to put too much pressure on him and think, okay, that concern that we had after week 1 is already solved. But you can't help but be excited by what he's showing. And when you think back to what he was at Colorado State, he was Mr. Consistent. When he was healthy, he was making plays all the time. They didn't have a fantastic offense at Colorado State, yet he was always there producing. So I think there's a really good chance that he is going to fill that void that we were concerned about. It's good to see Cooper Kupp involved as well. There might still be just one receiver light. And I do wonder if a few weeks down the line, when you do get teams, you know, Jaden Waddle, for example, if Miami decide we're going to just blow this whole thing up and we're going to start again, we're going to fire a coach, we're going to trade a few players, you know, I spoke to somebody who I know used to work for the BBC and said, what would the Dolphins want for him? And he's like round 3, round 4 pick, and he'd cost you $1 million. You know, if there's somebody like that available in a few weeks' time that you can come in and you bring in and the value's there, maybe you do that. But you can't help but be excited by what Horton's doing. He could potentially be Seattle's, and they're different players, but the Seattle's answer to that draft steal that the Rams got with Puka Nacua. And if Cooper Kupp can do what he did against Pittsburgh in particular, and with JSN playing as well as he is, then maybe they have just got enough in that receiver room to be good enough. And I still think Elijah Arroyo, there's more to come from him.
I absolutely agree with you on Arroyo, and I agree with you on the kind of wide receiver you want to target. Rob, one of the most common questions we've had, especially following week 1, but in the weeks that followed, is should they trade for Tyreek Hill? And like you said, Dolphins are in a tailspin. No pun intended. I agree with you, though. I think I prefer Waddle in that scenario. But have you been asked by some Seahawks fans who I'm sure are reaching out to you, oh, what about Tyreek Hill? What do you think about that? What do you say?
I'd say I think there's probably more chance of all my hair growing back than the Seahawks trading for Tyreek Hill. They've made a big push on character, haven't they? They've said that we want players that we can rely on, that are consistent, and they're not going to create any drama. And from the minute that Tyreek Hill has entered the league, drama has followed him. Like there's no doubt that if you want to throw it downfield, he is an absolutely unbelievable athlete, probably an Olympic level sprinter if he was going to go down that road. He is absolutely fantastic in that regard. But I don't think they want a receiver who they're going to wake up every morning and wonder if there's a headline about that particular player that's emerging. So I just don't see it as a fit. I think they're probably much more likely to look for people who fit. And when you are going out and signing Kupp, Lawrence as veterans, and you're looking like, we'll take Zabel in the first round and people like that. You know, these are high character individuals that they're bringing into the room. I don't think they're going to do anything to damage that. They seem to be onto a good thing with that. So I think you've got to have to fit with your personality. Can't just be about talent. As talented as Hill is, I don't think he's for the Seahawks.
All right, last one before we let you get out of here. And thank you again for your time, Rob, as always. Thursday night football here, a pretty quick turnaround to watching this game. Don't be afraid to repeat yourself with something you've already mentioned. What are you going to be watching for against the Cardinals?
Well, it's a 1 o'clock in the morning start for me, so it's always a very. I can't. The Thursday night football is not friendly to the people in the UK who follow the Seahawks, but what am I looking for? I want to see a continuation of this balance that they have. Good defense. Stay out of your way. They've done that for probably like the last game and a half since that first half in the Steelers and the whole of the Niners game. The play calling to be what it is. This play action that they've got into. Try and use a bit more of that outside zone to see a bit more increase in the running game. And I want to see a repeat of the last two games that we've had against the Cardinals last year. Like it was like 16-6 and the other one was, they blew it open eventually in that game. I just feel as if this is a good matchup for the Seahawks. And I hope that I'm saying that after the game as well, that this feels like, the Cardinals have typically probably played the Niners closer than the Seahawks recently. So I'm hoping that they're going to just be able to do what we expect them to do against this opponent, get the job done, have a good break. And then that next game against the Buccaneers looks like a fun. If you're 3-1 going into that Buccaneers game, and especially with that news about Mike Evans probably not going to be available for that game as well, you then start to sort of, you don't ever want to look too far ahead, but you start to think there's a pathway here for the Seahawks to have the kind of season that some of us thought they might have in the preseason. So it's coming together, keep it going, go and get another win, and let's get a 3-1.
Rob Staten of Seahawks Draft Blog. Great stuff. No surprise at all there. Rob, we'll talk to you next week.